Hello, everybody. My name's James Redfield, and I spent my semester working at the Anti-Defamation League. And before I get going, I just want you guys to know if I start sneezing and coughing, it's because I just got sick, luckily, so just bear with me. So my story basically starts off on a slow Monday. We have a staff meeting every Monday afternoon. And so I think today we were talking about some potential donations from donors that we were going to get, and I was probably a little spaced out, but that's not super important. So keep in mind, this is also in the middle of March, and everyone's a little worn down and weather-beaten, but something really amazing happened today. With one of the donations we got, there was a letter to accompany it. Now, the author, a 73-year-old woman of color named Alfreda, she sent some words of wisdom to us. She mentioned her experiences with the increases of anti-Semitic hate crimes in the United States, bigotry, and dangers to the democracy that so many people have worked so hard to protect. Now, what really struck me was the second half of her letter. She spoke about visiting her mother at her home recently, who is 103 years old, and upon her arrival, finding her in tears. Now, she was watching the news coverage of the recently imposed Muslim ban and exclaimed its frightening similarities to her experience being a young adult during the years of the Holocaust. And she went on to tell us, her daughter a story, Alfreda, of growing up in a town where her grandmother would hide her when the Ku Klux Klan would come through the town. And up until recently, she thought so many of these issues of social injustice and racial injustice were in history, and something that was something that people our age would just learn about in textbooks, but this is far from the truth. So to close up the letter, she gave thanks to the ADL for their work, and more importantly, there was a call for action from organizations like the ADL to continue our work and work harder and smarter. Now, growing up in a household with two extremely well-read and intelligent parents, I always felt that I had a fairly competent view of the different demographics that made up the people of the United States. But this was a moment that really made me stand back, and it was somewhat of a moment of clarity. And I think in 2017, it's too easy for people our age to think that these issues are just in textbooks and something that we have learned from, because data shows otherwise. In 2017 alone, so far, the number of anti-Semitic hate crimes has risen 87%. And coupled with recent laws like New York's stop and frisk policies and long-seated issues of the wage gap in terms of gender, these issues are far from being over. Now, we experienced issues of this even in our own office. I remember one morning showing up, and there was a lot of movement going around, and a couple police officers followed me in, and they were dealing with a bomb threat that we had received just minutes before I showed up. So from experiences like this, I've really learned that you have to expose yourself to stories like Alfreda's and keep your ears and your eyes open to what's going on in the United States and around the world right now. And that's the only way that we're ever going to be able to comprehensively and fully battle these issues of social injustice. Now, in the Anti-Defamation League, it's our job to work with minorities and act as a resource for people who've felt left behind from the American dream. That's our job. But I want everyone here to work harder and harder just to expose yourself to these sorts of stories and keep your eyes open to what's going on and changing in America, because things are changing so much faster now than they ever have before, it seems to me. And just be a leader of change and be that person that is going to reach out and help others along that don't have the resources to be there and speak for themselves. Thank you.